Hi, this is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations, and I'm here with today's Facebook Live. And we're going to be working on this adorable birthday card today. And it's kind of a floating circle of scraps. And so I'm going to show you today how we can take some of those small little pieces of cardstock that we thought we were going to have to throw away, and we're going to make some cute cards with them. And this is one of the cards we're doing for sure, but if we have enough extra time, I have a few other techniques I wanted to show you. So let's get down to my desk and get started. Okay, so here we are down on my desk. And you kind of get the idea of what I'm doing by the little pieces I have here. And what I did is I talked last week about how I save acetate. Now you can buy it from our catalog and you can buy other pieces. But if you go to the bakery section of your store and you're buying anything that comes in one of those plastic clamshell type, the food containers, you know what I mean, when they're flush on the top, I just cut out the flat pieces and I save them because there's always something I can do with them. And then I had a whole bunch of little scraps because, you know, when we take our normal layer of cardstock and we make it 4 inches by 5 1/4, and we cut that down a couple ways, and we end up with these, like, I don't know, 1/2 inch or 1 inch strips on the side of our cardstock that we're really not that sure what to do with. Well, I took and I cut them all into 1/4 inch strips because I wanted to show you this technique. All I did was I took and started with a piece of 1/4 inch strip of cardstock. And then I'm just going to take just a little bit of glue. Let me take a fuller one. I don't want to squeeze too hard because I don't want too much. Oops. I just want little bits of glue. And then I'm going to set it down onto this acetate at a diagonal. I mean, and you could go straight. I mean, I suppose it wouldn't matter since you're going to die cut it anyway. You could just put them on the diagonal, but that's what I did. And you know, if this is too messy, you could also use the adhesive sheets and put that on the back of the cardstock and then cut your 1/4 inch strips. Or you can use glue stick, or you can run your tear and tape on the back and then cut it off, because the tear and tape will kind of act like adhesive sheets. Of course, my fingers are getting sticky, so you might want to keep some wet wipes around. But you're just going to continue taking these and lay them down. And I'm just kind of spacing them about 1/4 inch apart. I mean, and they're not exact. I'm sure if I took a measurement tool, this isn't exactly straight. But you know that you could also, if it really bugs you, make them cattywampus on purpose. I mean, make them go all different directions, and then you can still cut out a fun shape. Glued all these down. I filled up the whole thing. I ran a continuous pattern. I first picked out some colors. I picked out Coastal Cabana, Gorgeous Grape, Melon Mambo, and Daffodil Delight. And I thought those were really pretty colors together, and it was nice and bright and cheery. And then I wanted to expand my color palette. And so what I did is I brought in So Saffron and Rococo Rose, Highland Heather, and then Pool Party. And then I just randomly mixed them up. And once I had one of each color down on my thing, I just started repeating. Again, you don't have to. That's me being a little OCD and wanting a definite pattern, evenly spaced, but you don't have to. That's the beauty of crafting, is you can take it any way you want it, and it all works great. We're all just being creative. So anytime you have extra little strips, this is one of the ideas that you can do with it. I glued them all on there, and then I die cut out. Now I did have to run this through my die cutting machine several times, and even I had to add a little bit of extra cardstock underneath in order to make it cut out. Now this one, I don't know if you can tell, but this has the stitched shapes circle. And for this one, I actually ran it through, and it cut the cardstock, but it didn't cut all the way through the acetate. And so after I had it out in this format, you know, it was still kind of in there, I just cut around it with my paper snips. So for this one, I went with just a straight circle because I thought maybe it was the stitching that was holding me up. And so this one worked much better. Also on my sentiment, I kept it simple because we were focusing on this part here, right? We're just learning how to do this. And so I stamped this after the fact. Probably not the best of ideas, but because I always teach you guys, you want to stamp first and then adhere, because had I made a boo-boo here, we would have just added a whole nother layer. We would have been good to go. And I did it freehand. Now, I don't show you this often enough, but when I'm trying to be particular about something, I use my Stamparatus. I use the Stamparatus because the plates come off, you know, you can make repetitive stamping down the side. You can do two-step stamping. I mean, there's so many things you can do with this. It's almost silly. But my favorite thing today is the fact that I can take words and I can sort of line them up on the grid. Can you see that there's a grid on there? And it works with the stamps like this because I can just put a piece of paper and make sure that, you know, that if I have it straight underneath the word and it continues straight on my grid, then it's probably straight. But if you have the photopolymer stamps, you can see all the way through and you can know for a fact that your word is sitting on a grid line, which ensures that you're straight. Then I took my card base and I wedged it up into the corner. And then I'm good to ink this up. And I have this in here because there is an additional foam mat. So if you were using photopolymer stamps, you want to be sure to use this because our red rubber stamps have that foam built into them. I don't know if you can see, but this is very similar. This foam here is similar to this foam here. And our photopolymer stamps don't have that. So if you're using photopolymer, use this one. If you're not, and you're up in the corner, it's a little tighter to try to get exact. And so I put my silicone mat in here. I use this for so many things. And it's just enough extra oomph to make sure that it makes really good connection in the corner. And then I did it in two colors. I don't know if you noticed, but that's one stamp in two colors. Now, obviously, I didn't do that with ink pads. I did that with my markers. I came in with the Stampin' Right markers and the brush tip end. Our markers are fabulous in that they have the writing end on one side, and then they have a brush tip on the other side. And they're good for lots of different things, watercoloring, regular coloring. When you're watercoloring, all you would do is you would take the brush end and you would draw on a block, and then you take the aqua painters and you pick a little bit of that up and you can watercolor with it. And you can also ink just certain parts of the stamp. So what I did was I came in and at an angle, took this and went this way. Now I can do a mix and match of the markers and the ink pads because the refills is the same ink, right? So this refill that would re-ink my ink pad will also re-ink the markers. You can take some of these reverse tweezers and you just pull this part out and put 1 or 2 drops in here and then roll it a bit and leave it on its side for it to evenly distribute, and you would have re-inked your marker. So that's part of the beauty of Stampin' Up's color coordination in that they all match. I'm making the top and bottom Melon Mambo and the middle in Gorgeous Grape. Now I did that on purpose. I made a not so perfect impression over there with the bee because I wanted to show you how easy it is to come back in with the brush marker again and ink this up. And redo this. Now this I bought on Etsy, I think it was. And this is just made on a, what do they call those? 3D printers? I don't know if you can see, but somebody printed this on a 3D printer and then put felt on the bottom. And this allows you to get good, even pressure all the way across. And now my bee is perfect. So I was able to ink that stamp and then not be happy with it, ink it again, and it goes in exactly the same spot. And even those teeny tiny letters still came out in good quality. They're not offset at all. I love that. So then, like I said, I took my circle, and we can either have this go straight across, we can mount it in the middle, we can pull it off to the side. We can do any number of things with it. But in order to attach it and make it look like it's floating, what I did is I used our foam adhesive strips. Now these come in 12-inch strips. They're pretty long. And so I just cut them down into sections. And then I'm going to place them on the back behind my 1/4-inch strips of cardstock so that it hides them. The overhead projector sheets, I used those for years. I had an old box of them that, you know, of course, we're not using overhead projectors anymore. And I had all of these plastic sheets and report covers and things that weren't getting used. And so I used them for this, for acetate projects in my card making. Okay, so then all we have to do is pull back this, expose the adhesive, and decide how I want it to go. Now it's hanging over, and then I'm going to look from the back, and I'm just going to trim off from here. It's always easier to trim off from the back side rather than trying to go this way, because you can see the part you want to cut off, and that makes it so much easier. So there's our first card. I mean, see, and that only took less than 15 minutes. That was so easy. And you can see if once you did up a couple of these strips, you could cut out squares, you could cut out circles, ovals. It doesn't matter. You can just cut out a bunch of shapes and use up your scraps. Another thing you can do is, here I have an oval. And I'm going to put, this is adhesive sheet. Again, it comes in great big sheets. I cut it down into just a section, and I'm going to adhere this to my cardstock. And I'm going to cut off my excess. And this is easy to do when I'm just following around on the edge of the cardstock. I just kind of feel for where I'm getting resistance, and then I stop because I don't want to cut through the cardstock. I only want to cut through the adhesive sheet. And if this makes your scissors sticky, you can use undo, or you can use alcohol. Rubbing alcohol will take all the sticky off of your scissors. So here I have this oval now, and I'm going to expose the sticky. And then I'm going to bring in more of my scraps that I was playing with. And I'm going to do kind of the same thing. I'm putting that right on the edge. And again, I'm leaving a gap in between. We can even do this. And I'm going to leave a gap here too. So it kind of looks like brick pattern. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. And that's why I chose a small oval, because I didn't want this to take forever as you guys sit here and watch me do something boring. But I promise it's going to look really pretty once I'm done. So there's another pattern. Now, you can see it doesn't have to be exact. This one is not quite as wide as that one. I'm probably the only one that's going to freak out. But then I'm going to come in and just kind of make it a little easier to work with. And then I have my Dazzling Diamonds. I dumped out a couple packages of them into this. And this is how I normally use my Stampin' glitter, is I come in with a spoon and kind of gently dump it over where I want it to go. Now I can see I kind of missed a little bit. Some of the adhesive came off there. So I'm going to very gently add a little glue. And there we go. So you're not quite seeing all the sparkle that I can see, being as I'm up close, but it does. It gives it kind of a grout kind of look and glitter. And then again, all I have to do is come around the back and snip off all these little extras. And there's like almost an Easter egg, huh? And so that could easily go on the front of a card. It can kind of lean off the side. I mean, there's all kinds of pretty things we can do with this little piece now. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's cards and that you give it a try and you use up some of your scraps and make some adorable little cards. Remember that tomorrow you can buy out of the new catalog and earn your celebration items. If you need any help with that whatsoever, definitely let me know. You want to jump on it right away because we have gotten word that a couple little things are selling better than expected and they're a little bit worried about inventory. I know it's a horrible thing with the coronavirus and shipping and all, but if there's something that you absolutely have your heart set on that you want right away, then you want to order it tomorrow. I'm just giving you kind of the heads up. But Sophie and I wish you a great Monday and a fantastic 2021. Thanks. Bye.